Eisenhower and domestic policy. In the 1950s, there was a great fear of a communist invasion to the United States. The American public feared the men in the Kremlin and what they would do to them and the population. The public also feared another depression and decline in work and in the economy. In response, Eisenhower created jobs for the public to stimulate the economy. He did so with the construction of the interstate and the suburban tracts that boosted the economy. In a result, Eisenhower realized that the Soviets posed a threat. He wanted the public to know what was going on, but changed domestic policy to change their minds off of it. Eisenhower acknowledged the public fears and addressed them. Most of what the public feared were just exaggerations and also assumptions. Creating a lucrative economy. Eisenhower first raised minimum wage to $1 per hour. Through this increase in minimum wage, Americans were fueled to find jobs to take advantage of this payroll and therefore contribute to the consumer economy. Eisenhower also offered Social Security to 7 million more people. It was presented to the population as a promotion of welfare and health. It has boosted American morale and it caused them to contribute even more to the economic society. Overall, Eisenhower was trying to create a lucrative economy, but he focused American mindset on working instead of the urbanization and highways. The Highway Act of 1965 was originally created for highways to be intact. Military would use this if there was a nuclear strike or an attack on the United States. Bomber planes could utilize them for emergency landing. Highways allowed for more and more Americans to spread out and settle on the outskirts of the country. It became a trading post and people moved into the country, developing grocery stores and gas stations to sustain life. William Levitt also contributed to this by creating an efficient way to build apartments and homes to speed up the process. As more and more people moved from the cities, it spread out the wealth, meaning lucrative businesses were not centered in cities. More and more success was found in these suburban towns, as evidenced by the employment rate of white males decreasing to 4% and minorities to 10%. In summary, suburbanization was another way that took Soviet invasion off the minds of Americans. Educational reform. After it went public that the USSR had launched Sputnik 1 and 2, President Eisenhower wanted to increase education in math and science. He wanted to fuel this new generation so that it can contribute to the Soviet and US space race, so that the generation would therefore dedicate their time. Secretary of State John Fuller Dole stated that it was an issue of national security that our youth would maintain the global position of leadership. John Foster Dulles. His main ideas were to capture any American state. The entire free world and the U.S. would be at greater harm if communism were to invade. Communism threatened the political independence and peace of America. He also announced that the best effort to get rid of these communist threats is to be ready with massive retaliation with nuclear weapons or brinkmanship to call Soviet bluff. The use of atomic weapons were the best option because it would be most effective in handling communist threats, and the cost of atomic weapons would be less than having a regular army with foot soldiers. The economy. From 1949 to 1959, the U.S. economy had improved. Eisenhower had used government spending to increase the GNP and to create jobs. The GNP had increased by $500 and the government spending had increased by $50 billion. Because government spending had increased, the U.S. deficit had increased from $1 billion to $13 billion. Revisionist views as stated by the article. Eisenhower understood the power of the U.S. and set limitations as to what they would do in dealing with communism. Eisenhower kept the U.S. out of an open-ended military commitment. Eisenhower used the CIA instead of the military because covert operations didn't attract as much attention and cost less money. Revisionists argue that with Eisenhower's policy, we aren't sure if he would have actually used atomic weapons or not. Eisenhower took nuclear brinkmanship to the extreme. The article opens the argument that although Eisenhower failed to understand third world nationalism, it was largely because of what he did that a nuclear war was avoided.